An airport, widely known as a genuinely hair-raising place, lies in the Rongotai Isthmus in New Zealand. Rongotai Airport opened with a simple tar runway almost 100 years ago, but had to be closed down for safety reasons in late 1947. Instead, Paraparaumu Airport, 35 miles north of Wellington, became the city's main airport and the country's busiest one within 2 years. But halfway through the 1950s, a proposal was put forward to relocate the terminal. By 1958, many houses were moved and hills bulldozed to make way for the new Wellington Airport. Comprising a small area of 110 hectares in the stretch between Wellington and the Miramar Peninsula, the facility is subject to harsh wind conditions. Due to the channeling effect of Cook Strait, which creates howling winds, the airport would quickly earn a reputation for rough and turbulent landings, even with relatively large aircraft. And as archival footage shows, the spectators would become involuntary witnesses to not one, but 3 accidents and near misses during the airfield's inauguration on October 25, 1959. Safety concerns. In October of 1959, hundreds of eager attendees gathered at the new Wellington Airport to celebrate its inauguration, and many aviation enthusiasts from all over New Zealand traveled to witness the most modern jets execute unthinkable stunts. A massive airshow was put together to commemorate the installation's opening. In the early days of the jet era, several innovative aircraft would be featured during the exciting occasion. As captured on camera during the event, and remembered in Paul Davidson's short documentary about the nearly calamitous airshow 60 years later, an Avro Vulcan, a Sunderland flying boat, and a de Havilland Vampire would all come too close to a fatal disaster. The unlucky streak began with a Royal New Zealand Air Force Sunderland flying boat coming from Hobsonville Air Base near Auckland. The British-built patrol bomber was to perform a smooth, low pass along the length of the runway, just as the crowd admired the aircraft. However, the strong wind severely complicated the task. As seen in the footage, the flying boat approached the airstrip and descended too low. The wheelless aircraft then struck the ground and dragged its keel across the runway, tearing a hole in its belly and leaving a mark along the pavement. Crippled, the Sunderland managed to climb away as water poured out of the hole and towards the crowd. When it returned to its home base, it had to be beached for repairs. Still, the incident would not be the most dramatic one during the infamous Wellington Airshow. Bad luck. "14-year-old Paul Davidson attended the event with a friend, and both were very happy to be at the Grand Airshow. The kids watched in awe as a formation of 3 Avro Vulcan B-1 bombers of the 617th Squadron of the Royal Air Force performed a few circuits. But suddenly, one of the bombers split off, getting ready for its solo display. The Vulcan was to execute a couple of touch-and-goes first, and then come to a full-stop landing. However, not only would the rough wind conditions make the maneuver difficult, but the aircraft would also require the maximum length of the runway to carry out the landing effectively, and moreover, to stop safely. After a few successful passes on runway 34 to calibrate the landing, the pilot felt confident and ready for his third and final pass. On the ground, the wide-eyed teens witnessed the Vulcan descending, but turbulence and wind shear forced the jet to touch down short of the runway threshold. Striking an embankment at the Moa point, or the southern end, the aircraft's left main wheel collapsed and caused it to tilt to the side, its wing almost digging into the grass and short of spinning off the runway and directly into the crowd. Adrenaline rush. The pilot, staff, and everyone attending the airshow held their breath as they waited for a disastrous succession of events. Davidson was impressed and would never forget that moment. 6 decades later, the filmmaker remembered, quote, "There was a bang as its wheels hit the bank and broke, followed by a few heart-stopping seconds of likely disaster. Then there was a thunderous roar as he accelerated away with kerosene mist spraying over us." Had the pilot lost control of the aircraft, the results could have been incredibly damaging. But somehow, he was able to regain control in the cockpit. Powering the bomber to full thrust, he got it airborne again, clear of any danger. The pilot's skill prevented a possible disaster and likely saved the lives of the spectators at the Western Apron. With ruptured wing attachments and engine fuel lines, besides its port undercarriage, the Vulcan returned to Oakia and executed a safe emergency landing using only the nose and starboard landing gear. It didn't suffer any further damage. Still, the bomber had to undergo months of repairs, and a specialized team had to fly from the UK to fix the jet and make it operational. The process lasted until January of 1960. Tucked away in the memory of the impressionable teen, the experience would inspire Davidson as an adult to tell the story close to the 60th anniversary of the inauguration. But little did he know that there was still one more event he had completely missed as a youngster. During his investigations, Davidson interviewed the pilots and dug up more details for his film, unearthing a third near catastrophe that happened literally meters away from total disaster. Strike 3. Davidson made a 16-minute documentary with the help of collaborators in the Air Force and the Air Force Museum. Besides these, he was able to track down Tom Enright, who flew a de Havilland Vampire the day of the air show. For the last act of the day, a Vampire aerobatic team would execute a deep dive towards the ground and then break into different directions. In the 1950s, it was a captivating sight to see the new jet fighters take their acrobatics to new heights. As the video shows, the four jets climbed high into the sky and pulled over into a steep vertical dive. But just at that moment, a thick cloud got in their way, and the group lost visual contact with each other. It was absolutely vital that the pilots maintained their teammates in sight for the breakout, so it was only after the four jets had cleared the cloud that an anxious team leader ordered the Vampires to break. Once the ground was unobscured by the obstacle, the pilots noticed that they were significantly closer to it than planned. Enright remembered how he had to wrestle against oppressive gravitational forces to gain control of his aircraft and avoid colliding with Hataitai Hill. In fact, a witness in the sky claimed that the jet was barely 3 meters above the ground when it finally pulled up with a narrow margin. The director and producer found his passion for aviation that day, and 60 years after the nearly fatal day, he argued that modern flying is safer and cheaper today, but some things were better back then. As he put it, quote, "We will never see an air show the likes of that one again. Can you imagine today's stealth bombers and fighter planes circling around Wellington Harbor?" Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed this story, please give us a thumbs up and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And for more aviation-inspired content, make sure to subscribe to all of our Dark Documentaries channels and hit the bell icon to be notified of our new videos. Stay tuned.